Good morning. I hope you had a good spring break. We have 6 weeks to go for those of you who are counting. We are approaching the part of the season in the King Institute schedule that brings us to an old tradition at King. Every year, 2 faculty are selected by students, 2 students are selected by faculty to do a lecture on something of interest to them. Sometimes they're very personal, sometimes they're about research. This morning, we welcome Lori Byington, and I'm going to leave it to Chase and Han to introduce him. Next week is our faculty lecture for the spring with Dr. Kyle Osborne from History. So we'll reassemble for that. On March 25th, we have a speaker here, Bruce Herman, who is an artist. April 1st, a tenor with the Metropolitan Opera, Aaron Blake. And finally, on April 8th, President Whitaker. So there are several more events coming up consecutively this spring. I hope you'll join us for all those, but first of all, let's welcome Chase and Han to welcome our speaker.
Good morning. There are many good things I can talk about Lori Byington today being our speaker, but I want to really focus on 3 major things that I've learned from being Lee's advisor and his professor over the years. I knew Lee about 6 years ago when he was a bright-eyed high school student as he participated in the youth program at First Presbyterian Church. I remember Lee, of course, as the bespectacled kid, the one with the dark rimmed glasses, but always smiling. It is also around that time, 6 years ago, that his mother, Professor Lori Byington, and I started to get together and conspiratorially try to think about ways where we can attract Lee to come to King rather than to UT or somewhere else. And we continue to have that conversation over the years on how we keep Lee here, how we make sure that he gets to a program. So all this happens in the background without Lee really realizing, but a lot of work really went into keeping him here and getting him here to King. The 3 things I really want to talk about in terms of the things that I've learned from Lee. Number 1, he is a diligent person, but he is also a very kind person. It matters more than you think when you walk into a class as a professor and you see a smiling face, somebody who is eager to learn, somebody who is happy to be there, and somebody who is not too cool for school. And Lee is that guy. And when you look out into the crowd, you lock eyes with Lee, you know he's ready to go, you know he's happy to be there. So that happiness, that joy that he brings into his everyday life really has been very valuable to me as his professor in the classroom. The second thing about Lee that I've learned as a good life lesson is that he is really dedicated to the roles that he plays on campus. He is a leader in the SLAC program, but most importantly, he's the manager for the wrestling team, and all of them are here today. Good job, guys. Yeah. He takes those roles seriously, and it's quite admirable to see him talk about his role in SLAC and his role as a team manager quite constantly, and he builds his social life, he builds his happiness really on campus all around SLAC and the team that he manages. The third thing, I think the most important of all, is really something I look up to in terms of his ability to love his friends strongly. We talk very often in the hallways, we talk very often after class, and invariably, every time we have a conversation, he will bring up topics about his friends. Let's talk about Meech, this and that. Let's talk about Frankie, this and that. Let's talk about Teus, this and that, right? Let's talk about Kara, this and that. And so he constantly brings up his friends because they are so important to him. And it's cute, it's admirable to see how much he really, really loves his friends. And you can tell because he has incorporated them into his talk today. So those are the 3 things I really admire about Lee, and by that, I would like to pass that to Chase to further introduce Lee for today.
Well, Han and I should have collaborated because we hit a lot of the same points, I think. But I've learned a lot about Lee in the last 4 years, too. It's been great to see him come and find his place on campus, and I think he's going to talk to you a little bit more about that. But some of the things I've seen in Lee are just in the sense of things he does. And so between his competitive skiing, his jiu-jitsu, and his dedication to leg day, I've seen his determination, hard work, and endurance. I've seen a sense of style and whimsy with his bandana tube tops at launch that he's tried to pull off. He has worked diligently for Slack the last 4 years, showing me his responsibility there. He showed me a sense of humor in the fact that, who else can fit a whole jar of sprinkles in his mouth at one time? I mean, just things that he has done continue to amaze me. But as Han echoed, one of the things that most impressed me was his dedication to his friends and just his finding his place in an unlikely group of friends who a lot of them have showed up today, who I never would have necessarily placed him with when he first started at King. And he's found his group. He's made them his own. They're dedicated to him, and it's just impressive to see from that. And so I've been more than impressed to see Lee grow from a professor's kid who started here and wasn't sure whether he wanted to be at King or not, to finding his place and being a servant leader on campus who's dedicated in love to all those around him. So please welcome Lee Byington.
Well, thank you all for coming out. Today I'll be doing a presentation on finding my community. A lot of them have come a long way, so I wanted to share that. So I want to start off by saying I'm a senior here at King. I'm a cell molecular bio major with a math minor. I was born and raised here in Bristol, so I went to Tennessee High School, and let's get into it. So here's my friend group from my high school at Tennessee High. We were considered the popular group, I guess you could say. A lot of us were successful athletes. A lot of us had state rings. We were also very academic. So being the nerdiness that we are, we decided to call our group chat the chess club. Kind of just stuck. We don't even have a chess club at Tennessee High. We just thought it would be stupid and funny to do so. But I made this really tight-knit community in high school, and we all, for the most part, went on our separate ways. There's a few people in this picture that went to UT together, but for the most part, the rest of us went on our own path to different colleges. But I knew that leaving this tight-knit community would be hard, but I was ready for the challenge because I was an outgoing person, and I knew that I could find another community in the future. I want to go ahead and point out, I did end up making a new community. I kind of went from this clean-cut white boy group to a more diverse, rough-looking couple of guys with a cauliflower ear. So in high school, I played soccer for all 4 years. I was a center back, and in this picture, actually, this game I got to score 2 goals, which I don't know if people who aren't familiar with soccer, it's pretty rare for a center back to score, but we were up 6-0 at halftime, and our coach decided to swap the front and back lines. And I wanted to just show this picture because it was a part of my identity, and this game meant a lot to me as a defender. And then, as Chase and Han both pointed out, I did competitively ski. I used to be on Beach Mountain Academy's race team, and so we skied slalom and giant slalom against other mountains like Sugar and Appalachian. And I joined the team when I was 5, and I skied for 13 years until I was 18, because that's when you age out of the club. But I actually placed first in state every year that I skied and got invited to nationals. And I got to attend nationals 3 times. The last time that I was there, I ended up placing 9th, which I thought was pretty good to be considered 9th in the country. But going out there was an eye-opener because around here in this area of the country, I was considered one of the best, and then going out there is like lining up next to guys that are from Breckenridge or Vail, Colorado, and that's their backwoods. But so soccer and skiing were a part of my identity throughout high school, and I want to talk about my family really quick. As many of you all know, Professor Byington is my mother, and as to some of you all, also a second mother. But my mom and dad have been there for me the whole time. They've been my biggest support system. Through guidance and through love, but it kind of sounds cliche, but I couldn't be here without them because they've just helped me out this whole way. They decided to baptize me when I was a newborn, and then I decided to rebaptize myself when I was in the 6th grade. I went through a confirmation program, and I didn't realize how blessed my life was because I had this loving friend group of high school and a loving group of parents, and I just didn't understand what that meant until I started going to college. So here's a picture of Appalachian State University because this was my number one choice when I was in high school. I did not want to go to King because my mom worked here. I didn't want to stay living in the same area as my parents, but App State is known for the outdoor campus of the world, and I love the outdoors, so I wanted to go there. I grew up going to football games once or twice a year because I knew I was going there, but the out-of-state tuition in North Carolina is just so expensive, and at the time, my family had a Beach Mountain cabin, which is in North Carolina, and the state of North Carolina just has a very strict rule of cheating your way into in-state, and so I couldn't work it out. And I valued a cheap education. And King is my fallback, and I came to King because it was my fallback, which sounds horrible, but it sucked for me because it was kind of like just settling. I didn't really want to be here, but I was here because it was cheap. Inexpensive. So my first semester was extremely hard. I didn't attend launch, and I didn't really have any friends coming in. I wish I had attended launch, but we'll talk about that more in the future. I kind of treated school like it was a clock-in, clock-out job because I went to class, I went to lab, and I would go straight home. I never spent time on campus other than learning. And that was just kind of my attitude. I just figured, I'm here at King because it's my fallback. I was just kind of like, get good grades, graduate, go on to the next part of my life. But I had this miserable pattern, and I was unhappy with my situation. So what I would do throughout the week is just get my homework over with so that I could go down to Knoxville to hang out with my friends that went to UT. And on the weekends, I had a blast. We would go watch football games or baseball or basketball, just hang out the whole weekend, and I would get there on Friday afternoon, and I wouldn't leave until Sunday night so that I could stay away from here as much as possible. But by the end of my first semester here at King, I actually had been accepted into UT. I was applying for scholarships, and I already signed a lease for an apartment in Knoxville with two of my buddies. And as Han was saying, him and my mom were working behind me to try to figure out how to keep me here. And I remember Han telling my mom that we have to finally get a girlfriend to keep him here. That's the only way. So obviously I didn't leave. So what happened? Here's a picture of me, Dimitri Tedley, and Christian Small on the left. Dimitri Tedley, also known as Meech, some of y'all might know. But and on the right is me and Tinsley Thompson in, I believe, probably Gen Chem lab. But anyways, these three people started off as just my study buddies, and it wasn't anything more than that because we had calculus and chemistry together. And at the end of that first semester, like I said, I hated my time here. So I went and I talked to my youth leader, and he told me that I can't leave King without trying to get involved on campus or trying to meet new. I started asking these three people after we would study, do you want to hang out? Do you want to go get food? Or if they had plans, they would invite me to come with it, and I would join them. But these three kind of started my roots here at King because they introduced me to people on the wrestling team, and then Tinsley showed me some of her friends on the softball team, and they invited me to Slack, and through Slack, I kind of planted my roots here. But so through Slack events, I found out about Launch, and at the end of my freshman year, I applied for Launch to work as a leader my sophomore year, and ever since then, I've worked it my sophomore, junior, and my senior year, which is kind of ironic because I never attended it myself. But I wanted to work Launch because I myself never really had a group coming into King, so I wanted to help others find their group. And I remember during my interview with Chase after my first year applying for Launch, he was like, so what did you think about Launch your freshman year, and what would you change? And I was like, I didn't go. I would change going. So here's a picture from senior night. This probably a couple weeks ago now, but this is a group of seniors that I hang out with pretty often now. Meech and Christian on the far right are, like I said, the reason that I found this group of wrestlers. And I already knew Frankie a little bit through classes because we all had classes together. But Christian, Meech, and I kind of they showed me into the friend group, and I became closer with Frankie first. And then Ethan and Naro on the right, or on the far left, we actually bonded because we would watch iCarly and Victorious in his dorm room. Because I had a night class on Mondays, and I wouldn't want to go home, which is already a change of things. And so we would just sit there and watch dumb shows on his dorm floor. And then Trent and I didn't really become close until the beginning of sophomore year during launch, which is another great reason why I'm thankful for that. So, like Han and Chase said, through my friends, I became the manager of the wrestling team. This experience was just another way for me to get involved on campus, and I thought of it at first as not only a way to be involved, but I could hang out with my friends more so than just outside of school. But now, this is the first thing that I had really that kind of gave me purpose on campus other than just going to school and getting good grades and graduating. So, through meeting Meech and Christian, I met Ethan, and Ethan showed me into this world of jiu-jitsu. Here's a picture of Ethan and I and the two Griffin brothers that own Bristol Jiu-Jitsu. But I figured since I'm the wrestling manager, I should get involved in that kind of community. I didn't even know the rules of wrestling up until the point of becoming the manager. And so I was like, I need to get myself involved. And Ethan already knew the Griffin brothers because he grew up training with them in Knoxville. But anyways, Ethan brought me in one day for a practice, and I loved it. So I started training there, even on my own. And I just want to point out that it's crazy that 1 year prior to this, I hated my time here at King, and now I already have a tight friend group on the wrestling team, and I'm growing my community outside of King just because of people I've met here. And then I also want to point out my weightlifting journey started because of Ethan. After I think it was the last week of our freshman year, he took me to the gym, and he took me weightlifting with him. And besides like weightlifting with my high school soccer team where I cut reps when coach isn't looking, I started lifting for real because of Ethan. And so I hate this picture on the left. I used to be 285 pounds. That's my sophomore year of high school. And this picture on the right is my sophomore year of college, and I weighed 195. So I lost 90 pounds. So I want to just point out, Ethan introduced me into jiu-jitsu and into weightlifting. And what I'm getting at here with this slide is I'm not saying that if you surround yourself with helpful people that you'll achieve whatever goal it is that you may have, but they're definitely going to help you. So if you surround yourself with the right group, they're going to help you grow because things are so much harder to do when you're by yourself. So during launch of my sophomore year, I met people like Aaron Milstead, and like I said, I became close with Trent Mahoney. And all the new people that came in, some of the people that I was their leader, I'm still friends with them, which is awesome. But I'm just thankful that I signed up for launch that year because I met so many new people. But Aaron and I became really close this week, and he used to be a part of the men's volleyball team. So he actually kind of brought me in and showed me to his teammates. And so after the end of this sophomore launch, I had friends on the wrestling team. I had a jiu-jitsu group, started weightlifting. I had friends on the volleyball team. And so my community is just growing so much, all because I put myself out of my comfort zone. So I'm sure everyone in here knows what Slack is and what it's about. But after working launch my sophomore year, Chase offered me a spot on Slack. And I worked that entire year, my sophomore year, as just an hourly worker. And then at the end of my sophomore year, Chase offered me an intramural committee chair spot. And I've worked that my junior and my senior year. And I've enjoyed it a lot because it's just a way for me to have another role here on campus and help others find other groups. But Slack and Launch are both great ways for people to get involved here on campus. And if you haven't tried it, I would persuade you to do so. But I want to say this next part for the faculty and staff in here, that you should not undermine Slack for the role that it plays on students, because it has the ability to keep us students happy and well here on campus. Because this campus life is an important part about what King has to offer. So here's a picture that my mom sent me. I believe it was last Christmas break. I was actually on a echo trip for cross-cultural experience in South Florida. But my mom sends me a selfie of her and a lot of my friends on the wrestling team. And I thought this was super cool because I've grown my community with these wrestlers, but it's also not me growing community, but they have expanded their community because they have met me. And so they've got this new addition of my parents as kind of like their Bristol parents. And like Trent and Meach used to refer to my mom as Professor Byington or Professor B, but now my mom won't even respond if they don't call her Mama B. So I want to kind of transition this into my academic side of growing. Before King, I came here, I knew I wanted to do something in science. I didn't know if it was going to be biology or chemistry or physics. I ended up picking biology, and I'll talk about that on the next slide. But while I was here, I had to take Calculus 1 and 2, and Dr. Linderman and Leendo kind of both convinced me into picking up a math minor. And they both tried hard to do the double major, but I wasn't about that. But I want to point out that I know that Professor Liendo's title is Professor Liendo, but because of her military background and our friendship, I prefer to call her just Liendo. So I knew that I wanted to be an optometrist ever since I was 12 years old. I had a family friend that kind of showed me that's what he does, and he kind of brought me in and just gave me a lot of enlightenment about it, and I thought it's been cool ever since. But I'll be attending Southern College of Optometry in Memphis, Tennessee this coming fall. So I'm excited about that next chapter in my life. But when I came to King, like I said, I knew science of some sort, and Dr. Laura Ong was my first advisor. And when I told her I wanted to do optometry, she told me that I should be advised by Dr. Han Ong instead, because he has already had previous experience with optometry students. So he persuaded me into picking a cell molecular bio track because it would over-prepare me for graduate school with the classes that I need to graduate with. So I just want to point out that the bio department here has been great, and I would consider all of the science staff here at King more than just teachers or advisors, but they're considered a friend of mine because they've been there for this entire path of not just teaching me or advising me, but they've been there for applying for grad schools and giving me advice on what to do next. My future is still very science heavy, obviously. So I kind of want to talk about how science has clashed with that growing here at King and also my religious belief here at King. So a lot of people think that if you're a Christian, you can't believe in evolution. And I know that's a very tough topic, and that's kind of what I went through my sophomore year here at King. So I want to talk about that really quick. Because before King, I didn't believe in evolution at all. It was just kind of like embedded in my mind that God made Adam and Eve and not that they evolved into Adam and Eve. Because I want to read this from Genesis. Genesis 2:7, the Lord God formed a man from the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life. And Genesis 2:22, the Lord God made a woman from the rib he had taken out of the man. So that's all I believed, because that's what the direct scripture reads. But during Gen Bio 2, and also from comparative anatomy with Professor Rudd, they talked about evolution, and I kind of just soaked it up, and I was like, I need to know this because I need to do good on the test. But I didn't care about it. And Dr. Han Ong talked about radiometric dating and how the Earth is 4.6 billion years old, and I began to question, well, what's true? Is evolution true, or did God make Adam and Eve? And I want to point out radiometric dating is just the process of dating rock material to figure out how old it actually is. So God and science are now both important to me for my time here at King. And this question that I had about which one to believe, and I wasn't questioning my belief as a Christian, I was just questioning my belief of how Adam and Eve were made. So I began to question it, and I started researching and YouTubing to find an answer. This is from the General Assembly of the Presbyterian Church, which I thought was fitting since we're a Presbyterian college. There is no contradiction between an evolutionary theory of human origins and the doctrine of God as creator. And then also Pope Pius XII said that there's no conflict between the theory of Scripture and evolution so long as the human soul is the direct creation of God. And so from those two, I kind of pieced together the idea that God did create humans, but more so that he created the soul of humans and that the body of humans have evolved into. And so hearing those two, I kind of threw out the idea that you can't believe in one or the other, but you can believe in both together, and that they kind of even work together. And I also want to say that if God is considered the creator, that doesn't mean that he creates and then stops. He always is creating. And so with every new life, whether it be a human, animal, or plant, God is going to be creating a new genetic code that has never existed, and that new genetic code is going to be adapted to the surrounding of whatever is living where it is, and that in turn is evolution because it's slowly evolving to be adaptive to its surrounding. So, how did my community help me grow? If I had never stayed here at King, I would have never questioned whether I believe in evolution or just the strict passage, the readings from the passage. I think that questioning your belief is a good thing because it kind of shows you what is true, if something is going to fall apart or become more true. And I actually got that from Chase. When I was making this presentation, I was seeking advice from Chase, and he told me, if something of question is real, it just gets more real. But if something is fake, then it'll just all fall apart. So that's kind of what I went through when I was doing this research, because my faith became stronger, and I used my science background to figure out what it is I believe. I want to show this passage from Psalm 32:8. The Lord says, I will guide you along the best pathway for your life. I will advise you, and I will watch over you. I kind of feel like this is the moral of my story here at King, because God kind of let me figure out that I wanted to be here on my own, but the entire time he was just kind of watching over me and letting me make that decision. So I believe that God did guide me these past 4 years and has helped me find these amazing people in my life and everyone who has been here today to support me. I appreciate it. Thank you. This is in my presentation.
All right, Lee, and thanks for being the student lecturer this year. They've got you a plaque, and thank you everyone for coming out, and y'all are dismissed.